The parking garage echoed with the sharp sting of my heels against the concrete. My keys trembled in my hand as I pressed the fob, just one button away from starting the car. That's when a man stepped out from the shadows. His clothes were torn, his face weathered, but his eyes were desperate, almost pleading. "Ma'am," he gasped, his voice raw, "don't start that car. Your daughter-in-law set you up." For a moment, the world froze. My chest tightened. My daughter-in-law. Why would Sloane want me dead, or worse, erased? I swallowed hard, every instinct screaming to run, but my gut told me this wasn't a stranger's madness. This was a warning. And I had no idea that by the end of this day, I would be staring across a table at my own family, fighting for my husband's legacy, and for my sanity. If you've ever felt dismissed, betrayed, or made to feel invisible, or maybe you've experienced the deepest loneliness, or that unbearable pain of losing those you love most, share it. Leave a comment, tell me where you're watching from. And don't forget to subscribe, because maybe the next story will remind you of your own strength. I woke before the sun, the way I had during the months of Thomas's illness, when the night was a long, thin thread easily snapped by worry. The house was too quiet, our split-level brick in Lakewood, with its maple out back and the wind chime Thomas insisted, kept the good spirits moving. Morning light pushed through the kitchen blinds in white slats, striping the oak table where we'd paid bills for 42 years. I made coffee the way he liked it, out of habit, and set his mug down before catching myself. The small clink of ceramic against wood echoed like a mistake. "You have to stop doing that, Nora," I whispered. But grief is muscle memory, it keeps reaching for a hand that isn't there. I dressed like I was armoring up. Navy blazer. The pearl studs Thomas gave me on our 35th. I checked the mail, the plants, the deadbolt, twice, because the mind needs rituals when the heart doesn't trust the day. My reflection in the hall mirror looked like a woman who had done hard things, then come home to a silence that asked for more. The phone rang at 9 o'clock on the dot. Precise, professional. "Mrs. Bennett? This is Erica from Klein and Marlowe. We're ready to proceed with the estate settlement at 2 o'clock. Conference room B." Her tone was a room with no windows. 2 o'clock, I said, and hated how small my voice sounded in my own kitchen. Hanging up, I pressed my palm to the cool granite and breathed. This was supposed to be simple. Thomas had been clear, everything to me, then, when I was gone, to Daniel, with a note about not letting money become a leash. We'd talked about it over pot roast, over tax forms, at red lights when the evening sun burned the horizon orange. Simple doesn't always survive other people's plans. On the counter sat the folder I'd put together the night before, original will copies, bank statements, contact list, a note in Thomas's hand, "Proud of you." I traced the ink until it blurred. A cardinal thumped the window and flew off, as if to remind me that a body can hit a hard pane and still find sky. I shut off the stove, unplugged the iron, checked the front door again. My keys felt heavy. My age felt like a fact I could carry or a weapon someone might use. When I stepped into the garage, the air had that late October bite, engine oil and concrete. I told myself not to be dramatic. "You're fine, Nora. You're competent. You've balanced books, raised a son, buried a husband. You can sign papers." The key fob pinged. A red LED on the dash woke like an eye. Then a shadow moved between the columns. Footsteps. A voice, roughened by cold and nights without enough sleep, "Ma'am, please. Don't start that car. Your daughter-in-law set you up." My hand froze midair. And in that beat of silence between instinct and reason, I realized the day wasn't going to be simple at all. I turned, and the man stepped into the light, holding not a weapon, but a manila folder with my name on it. He kept his distance the way decent men do when they know their presence looks like trouble. Mid-50s maybe, a beard gone salt and ash, jacket that had seen more seasons than paychecks. But the eyes, steadier than his hands, were the kind that tell you the truth even when the mouth is still searching for the words. "My name's Caleb," he said, voice low, palms open. "Caleb Morris. I used to be a paralegal at Klein and Marlowe. 12 years. I don't know you," I said, and heard Thomas in my head, "Don't be alone in garages with men who know your name." "I know," he said, a flicker of shame. "You shouldn't trust me. But you also shouldn't turn that ignition." I found evidence they installed a remote immobilizer on client cars, yours, today, to stall you, to push you to reschedule, to buy them time. It's not legal. It's not standard. It's their kind of standard. The word immobilizer made my stomach drop. "Why?" "Because your daughter-in-law has been meeting with them for months," he said carefully. "Bringing in documentation that you're slipping. Affidavits. Photos. They prepped an amendment, a trust, all of it designed to put your son as trustee while they carve fees out of your estate. Today they plan to have you sign. They didn't expect you to show up on time." He lifted the folder. I kept copies. Emails. Metadata. Payment logs. I got fired when I asked too many questions. A light flickered overhead, buzzing like a gnat you can't swat. "Why warn me?" I asked. "What do you want?" "Nothing," he said. Then, softer, a little clean air around my conscience. He handed me a business card so worn it had become a memory of a card. Caleb Morris, paralegal. The L split by a crease. Behind him, a door opened at the stairwell and closed again, the way buildings breathe. "If you're lying," I started. "I hope I am," he said. "But I'm not." The rational part of me wanted to leave. The older, scarred part, the one that had sat through oncologist appointments and financial meetings and funeral homes, knew when a lie was wearing good shoes. I took the folder and flipped the top page. My name. A scanned signature of Thomas's, the baseline 2 straight. A doctor's letterhead with a zip code wrong by 1 digit. Sloppy men make arrogant mistakes. What do I do? I asked. Go, he said. Don't miss the meeting. Don't sign a thing. Ask questions slowly. Force them to say the lies out loud, on record. I'll show up if they try to force you. And call the bank the second you see the word wire. Sloane's smart enough to move fast once you're corralled. I tucked the folder under my arm, the paper warm from his hands. Fear and fury braided in my ribs. You'll come. I said. He nodded. If they let me through the door. I pressed the elevator button. The door side opened to a mirrored box where I barely recognized the woman looking back, older, yes, but not fragile. Not today. On the ride to the 15th floor, my phone buzzed. Hi Mom, it's Daniel. Sloane says she'll meet you there early. The elevator hummed me upward like a slow-moving verdict. 15th floor chime. Polished marble. The reception desk at Klein and Marlowe glowed with the kind of wood that makes people feel small. A receptionist in a camel sweater smiled with all her teeth and none of her warmth. Mrs. Bennett, right on time. Conference room B. On the walk down the corridor, my brain played a cruel highlight reel. Sloane's gentle corrections, her tilted head, the, "Are you sure?" that had lived in our kitchen for a year. The night she opened the pantry and found the milk I'd meant to put in the fridge. It's okay, she'd said lightly, like a nurse promising a shot wouldn't sting. Happens to everyone. The way she'd glanced at Daniel after, a look that said see. Daniel, my boy with the crooked grin, had started finishing my sentences like he was catching falling plates. Mom, I'll handle the taxes. Mom, I'll drop that check. Mom, you rest. Love can look like help. It can also look like erasure when someone else is arranging the scene. I remembered Sloane suggesting she take Thomas to his doctor that last month, when my back had been bad, when the pain pills made everything fogged. "I'll keep notes," she'd said, tapping her perfect phone case. "I'm good at details." She is good at details, I thought now, and felt the floor tilt a degree beneath me. At the conference room door, I fixed my blazer and made my face into my mother's Sunday face, pleasant and unreadable. Through the frosted glass, I saw shapes: a man with silver hair, another with a tie too bright, a woman with a notebook, and a small figure with a neat bun twisting a ring. My hand found the brass handle. I paused, the way you inhale before a plunge. "Thomas," I thought. "If you can hear me, give me your steadiness." I opened the door. The room smelled like lemon oil and legal pads. Sun fell across the glossy table in bands. 3 attorneys on one side, Victor Klein with his ice-chip eyes, Dawn Marlowe with her practiced empathy, and a junior whose name I didn't bother to learn. Sloane sat opposite, her expression arranged into concern. When she saw me, something flinched across her face, a flicker too fast to catch. "Nora," she said softly. "We weren't sure you'd make it on time." "I was early," I said, and set the folder down like a quiet threat. "Let's get you settled," Klein purred. He gestured to the head of the table. "We'll walk you through some routine updates your late husband requested before his passing." "On the record," I said, eyes on the small recorder at the table's end, its red light blinking, a mechanical heartbeat. "Every word." "Of course," he smiled, shark smooth. I slid into the chair, pearl stud cool against my ear, and folded my hands to stop them from shaking. I thought of Caleb's warning, of metadata and wires and trained smiles. "Before we begin," I said, "tell me exactly what I'm about to sign." Klein opened a leather folder, and that's when the door pinged behind me. "Delivery for Mrs. Bennett," the receptionist said. It wasn't flowers. It was a thin, battered manila envelope addressed in a careful, unfamiliar hand. Klein's mouth tightened as the receptionist slid the envelope to my elbow. His fingers hovered over his pristine file, then withdrew, like a pianist sensing the wrong key. "We can ignore that for now," he said smoothly. "It's likely." "We won't," I said. Sloane's face did something interesting: relief. Fear. Both look a lot alike at first glance. "Mrs. Bennett," Dawn murmured in a practiced hush, "we know this is difficult. Harold was concerned about placing too much burden on you. The trust is designed to protect you. Your son would simply oversee." "Protect me from what?" I asked. I kept my tone soft, because steel is sharper when it's quiet. "From paying my mortgage on time. From balancing a checkbook." Klein slid a document across the table. "From confusion. From future decline. Harold was advised." "By whom?" I said. "By my daughter-in-law." Sloane shook her head, eyes shining appropriately. "Nora, please. This isn't about me. It's about making sure you're supported." I picked up the top page. A medical letterhead. Dr. J. L. Hightower. The address line listed the clinic on Colfax, but the zip code was wrong, a 7 where there should be a 2. "I had spent last spring sitting in that waiting room. I could draw you the coffee stain on the potted fern." I set it down. "Do you record all your clients without consent?" I asked, nodding at the blinking red light. "Standard practice for our protection," Klein said, the smile that says we've done this 100 times on his face. "We have amendments for your signature, non-discretionary trustee powers, a conservatorship recommendation in the event of incapacity, and—" "Stop," I said, and surprised myself at how steady it sounded. "You will walk me through every word. Slowly. On record." The junior associate cleared his throat. We, also have some affidavits from family noting. Which family? I said, though I already knew. Daniel, Sloane said softly. And me. Daniel. A ache bloomed behind my ribs. My son, I repeated. My son who learned from his wife that I can't be trusted with my own life. Nora, she said, hands flat on the table, manicured nails catching the light, don't make this adversarial. We want to help you. Help, I thought. It's the nicest verb to hide a theft. I slid my thumb under the envelope flap. Inside was a shorter stack, emails printed out, a letter on firm letterhead, a spreadsheet with time stamps. At the bottom, a post-it note in neat block letters. Nora, don't sign. Check the dates on the doctor letters. Compare to Thomas's hospice schedule. Look at the PDF metadata. CM. Caleb. My heart thudded. I raised my eyes to Klein's. Before I sign anything, I want to know why the clinic zip is wrong, why the amendments use a scanned signature, and why your emails to my daughter-in-law include the phrase, we can push mom to reschedule if she's flustered. Klein's smile didn't break, but it stopped being alive. Mrs. Bennett, I don't think. The conference room door swung open again, harder this time. Ma'am, the receptionist said, breathless, there's a Mr. Morris here insisting you asked him to bring. Send him in, I said, before Klein could speak. Caleb stepped over the threshold holding a thicker envelope and said, clear enough for the recorder to catch, I have the originals. Caleb looked scrubbed and solemn in the unforgiving light, like someone who had washed up on shore and wasn't sure if the land was kinder than the sea. He nodded to me, then to the recorder, then to the attorneys with a civility that tasted like contempt. Mr. Morris is trespassing, Klein said, already dialing something under the table, probably security, or a partner who specialized in shutting doors. Then call security, Caleb said mildly, setting the envelope near the recorder like offering it to the truth itself. But before anyone touches a phone, Mrs. Bennett should see what your firm did to her husband's signature. Dawn started to protest, then didn't. That was the tell, when trained liars forget their lines. Caleb slid out an 8x10 print of a digital overlay. 2 signatures stacked like tracing paper, Thomas's real one curved with the slight rightward slant I knew as intimately as his laugh, and another laid perfectly atop it, every loop exact. Too exact. You can match samples, Caleb said for the recorder, but you can't replicate microscopic pressure variance. This is a scan. He placed a second sheet, PDF metadata logs. The amendment claiming capacity concerns was created 2 weeks after Mr. Bennett's death. Timestamps show a Klein and Marlowe workstation. The physician letters template came from a free site, the zip's wrong. Sloane's hands shook. She twisted her ring hard enough to blanch the knuckle. Enough, Klein snapped. This is privileged. It's criminal, Caleb said. I watched the junior associate's Adam's apple bob. Dawn's eyes flickered to the recorder, then to Klein. When she looked back at me, something human struggled under the lacquer. Mrs. Bennett, she said carefully, if there were irregularities, we can rectify. Rectify meaning bury. Rectify meaning, how much would it take to make this go away? A hot pulse lit my chest. I didn't raise my voice. I just gathered the papers into a neat stack, like folding a flag. We're going to slow down, I said. We're going to verify every document. And then we're going to make some calls. The room went refrigerator cold. Who are you calling? Sloane asked, her breath too shallow. The bank, I said. And the police. As if summoned by the word bank, my phone buzzed on the tabletop, screen bright. Frontier Bank fraud alert, wire attempt, $480,000 from Bennett Living Trust, new. Confirm Y/N. I felt the bottom drop out of the day. The trust, I had not signed yet, reaching its hand into Thomas's work like it was a pocket. I pressed decline and then the bank's direct line. "This is Nora Bennett," I said when a human voice answered. "Hold all outgoing wires. Flag account activity for law enforcement. I do not authorize any transfers from any instrument created in the last 30 days. Klein reached for a pen he couldn't seem to hold. "Mrs. Bennett, let's be reasonable." I said, and looked at the recorder so there would be a clean line for a detective to follow later. "This meeting is being recorded. I do not consent to amendments. I will not sign. You will preserve all documents effective immediately." The receptionist cracked the door again, pale. "There's a Detective Ramirez in the lobby asking for you, ma'am, and your son just arrived." Daniel walked in like a man who'd been sprinting and realized at the threshold it wasn't a race anymore, it was a reckoning. His hair was mussed, his tie crooked, the boy I taught to ride a bike still visible under the beard. He took one look at me and at the pile of papers and at Sloane's ring-twisting hands, and his mouth opened on my name. "Mom." "We'll talk in a minute," I said gently, because I heard his voice at 8 years old and 35 colliding. Detective Ava Ramirez followed him in, badge clipped to a charcoal blazer, eyes that missed nothing. She surveyed the table, the recorder, the printouts. "Which one of you is Nora Bennett?" "I am," I said. "Good," she said. "Let's keep this easy. Don't touch anything you didn't walk in with." She glanced at the recorder. "You're taping. Excellent." Klein stood like a man about to sell beachfront property in Nebraska. "Detective, this is a misunderstanding." "Maybe," Ramirez said, not buying a square inch. "Or maybe it's wire fraud, forgery, conspiracy, and elder financial exploitation. I'll let the paper trail decide." Sloane's face broke, finally, under the effort of being composed. "Detective, we were trying to protect her," she said, tears welling, the kind that come from panic, not remorse. Ramirez looked at her like a scientist at a petri dish. "You were trying to protect yourself from debt collectors," she said evenly. "We'll get to that." Daniel flinched. "Debt?" "Not now," I said quickly. I turned to Ramirez. "The bank attempted to process a $480,000 wire from a Bennett Living Trust I never signed." Ramirez nodded to the papers. "We'll need copies of everything. Originals stay here until a warrant arrives. In the meantime, nobody leaves." Klein bristled. "Detective, you can't." "I can secure a scene when evidence is at risk," she said. "Try me." My phone vibrated again, Frontier Bank on the line. I put the call on speaker. "Mrs. Bennett, this is Priya Shah with Fraud and Compliance. We've frozen the outgoing wire and placed a hold on the new trust account pending verification." "Thank you, Priya," I said, and my voice finally shook, but from relief. "Please note Detective Ramirez is present and will follow up." "Already flagged," Priya said. "Also, Mrs. Bennett, could you confirm whether Daniel Bennett and Sloane Carter are authorized signers on any accounts of yours?" Daniel turned as if someone had put a hand through his chest and squeezed. "Mom, They are not," I said. "They never have been." Priya exhaled. "Understood. We'll send you secure links for affidavit statements within the hour." "Send them to me," Ramirez said, and rattled off a department email. Her pen was relentless. Daniel moved closer to me, palms out. "Mom, I didn't know about this." "I swear." Sloane said. "Sloane said a lot," I answered, not unkind. "We're going to separate the saying from the facts." Sloane's chair scraped. "You'll ruin us," she whispered to me, rage peeking through wreckage. "Do you understand what kind of hole we're in?" I met her eyes. I didn't dig it. Ramirez's radio crackled, "Units arriving with a warrant, and Sloane's phone lit up with a notification I could read upside down: credit card declined, past due $18,742. For the first time all day, I felt my footing. Not because the ground got kinder, but because I'd finally decided not to let it tilt me. Thomas used to say, when you don't know what to do, slow everything down until the truth can catch up. So I did. "Detective," I said, steady, "please note for the record, I do not consent to any amendments presented here today. I request preservation of all firm correspondence with my daughter-in-law and any third-party medical providers referenced." "Logged," Ramirez said, pen scratching. "And for the record, Miss Carter, were you present at any of Mr. Bennett's medical appointments without Mrs. Bennett?" Sloane's chin lifted, defiance left over from 1,000 small victories. "He asked me to help when Daniel was busy." "Did he ask you to represent his wishes regarding his own wife's competency?" Ramirez asked. No answer. Just that ring turning, a moon in her orbit. "Daniel," I said, turning to my son. "Look at me." He did. The man and the little boy in him wrestled behind his eyes. "Did you sign any documents you didn't read?" I asked. Shame flushed his cheeks. Sloane said it was routine. She said Dad wanted to make sure you weren't overwhelmed." "And did you feel better believing that?" I asked, softer. "Did it make your fear quieter to think your father doubted me instead of admitting we were all just sad and tired?" He swallowed. "Yes." "Okay," I said. "Okay." I faced Priya's voice on speaker. "Ms. Shaw, create alerts on any accounts attached to my name. Any wire over $5,000 requires a voice confirmation from me and my independent counsel, on a recorded line. Also add my trusted contact as Detective Ramirez's office in case of suspected exploitation." "Done," Priya said. "And Mrs. Bennett?" Well, never mind. It's good to hear someone take charge of her own story." I blinked hard, the compliment landing where resolve meets grief. Caleb stood a step back, as if trying to be smaller than his brave. He had done the right thing and would have to live with it. Right things sometimes cost. "Mr. Morris," Ramirez said, eyes on him now. "You willing to give a statement?" He nodded. 12 years worth. Klein finally exhaled the way bullies do when the hallway fills with teachers. "Detective, my client will be making no statements until counsel arrives." "Your client?" Ramirez said mildly. "Which one is that?" He didn't answer. He didn't need to. The junior associate was quietly texting like his career depended on the next 3 minutes. Maybe it did. I collected my papers, closed the flap on the envelope, and stood. My knees didn't wobble. "We're done here," I said. "Ms. Marlowe, Mr. Klein, save everything. Ms. Carter, you and I will speak again, with Detective Ramirez present." Sloane's voice was a shard. "Nora, please." I paused at the door. "If you had asked me for help, I would have given it. You chose to steal instead." The hall outside was quiet, until a new sound rose, faint and unmistakable: Daniel, behind me, finally breaking, saying the words that would rip us open: "Sloane, tell Mom about the loans." We didn't go far, just into a smaller conference room down the hall where the lights didn't glare quite so hard. Ramirez closed the door, planted herself like a lighthouse, and nodded for Daniel to talk. He sat, elbows on knees, like a penitent at a wooden pew. "The business went south during the pandemic," he said, voice raw. "I hid it from you and Dad. I took out a second HELOC on the house. Then a bridge loan with an interest rate that should be illegal." He laughed once, hard. "It probably is." "How much?" I asked. He met my eyes, tried to look like a man, and looked like my boy. 300. Closer to 4, with the cards. I pressed my palm over my pearls so my hand had something to do besides shake. And you thought the answer was to put your mother under a conservatorship. I thought, he swallowed. Sloane said Dad had been worried about you. That he'd talked to her about slipping. She said the trust would keep you safe and keep the money safe and, Mom, I'm sorry. I wanted to believe Dad had a plan. Your father's plan, I said, was me. Sloane leaned forward, mascara soldiering against a long battle. You don't understand desperation. Don't I? I said, and tasted steel in my mouth. I have lived on one man's paycheck and cooked on one burner when the stove broke and made Christmas out of coupons. I understand desperation. I do not understand betrayal. Ramirez's pen paused. Miss Carter, did you authorize any wire transfers today? Silence. Miss Carter, Ramirez repeated. Sloane's jaw clenched. Yes, she whispered. Daniel's head snapped toward her. You, what? I panicked, she said. I saw how close we were and I thought if we could just move the money, we could fix it before. Before my mother noticed, Daniel said, very calm, the dangerous kind. Before she suffered, Sloane shot back, the last lie limping. I was trying to protect. Your lifestyle, I finished. Your car. Your curated goodness. Sloane flinched like I'd slapped her. You used my grief as cover, I said, quieter now, because the truth didn't require volume. You took Thomas to appointments and came home with stories about worries he never had. You taught my son to doubt me, a drop at a time, until he couldn't taste the poison. Daniel put his head in his hands. Ramirez stood. Miss Carter, you'll come with me to give a formal statement. Mr. Bennett, you too. Mrs. Bennett, you can stay with Mr. Morris until we're ready for you. I looked at my son. We are not done, I said. But we will do this one step at a time. Truth, then repair, if repair is possible. He nodded, tears he didn't hide anymore. Ramirez opened the door, and uniformed officers were already there with a warrant, their presence a cool wind through a stale room. As they escorted Sloane down the hall, she turned back over her shoulder and said the last thing I expected, Nora, please. Let me make it right. The rest of the afternoon unspooled like a long, grim ribbon. Officers moved in and out, evidence bags whispering. A tech photographed everything, including the recorder with its now silent red eye. Dawn signed a form with a hand that finally shook. Klein called someone with influence and discovered influence has less pull when the paper is honest. I sat with Caleb in a quiet corner near a window that pretended to be a view. The city lay below, streets like veins, traffic pulsing in predictable rhythms. People walked and didn't know that on the 15th floor, one family had cracked. Thank you, I said to Caleb, the two plainest words that cover the most ground. He shrugged, stared at his hands. I could have done it sooner. You did it, I said. That counts. He nodded without believing me. They'll come after me, he said, factual. Not legally. Quiet ways. It's how firms like that clean up. You can work in my garden for a while, I said before I thought it all the way through. Studio above the workshop is empty. It needs a person. Thomas would have approved. He liked bringing people in out of weather. Caleb blinked. I might take you up on that. Ramirez returned, her face the kind a doctor wears when she has to say a thing you already know. We've seized the files we need. Miss Carter admitted authorizing the attempted wire. Says she acted alone. Ramirez's eyebrow rose a millimeter to say she didn't buy it. And Daniel? I asked. Cooperating, she said. He signed statements. He's devastated. Good, I said, then hated the word, then let it stand. Devastation sometimes builds better things than denial ever will. We rode the elevator down together, the three of us, strangers braided by a day. In the lobby, the world resumed, the guard flirting with the delivery guy, a woman in a navy dress laughing into a phone. The door whooshed open, and the Denver air met my face like water after a fast. Outside, Daniel waited by the curb, suit jacket on his arm, looking like a man who had learned the shape of consequences. He opened his mouth and closed it again. Finally, Mom, I don't know how to ask for something I don't deserve. Then start smaller, I said. Tell me the whole truth, every ugly inch of it, and don't ask me for forgiveness until you have something to hand it. He nodded. I will. Behind him, Sloane stood with an officer, signing paperwork, her shoulders pulled in, smaller than I'd ever seen her. She looked up at me, and, for a heartbeat, I saw not the architect of a theft but a young woman who had turned fear into fire and burned everyone in the room. You said you wanted to make it right, I called to her across the distance between us. She swallowed. I'll testify, she said. Against them. Against myself. Then do it, I said. My phone buzzed again, an unknown number, and a voice I hadn't heard in months. Mrs. Bennett? This is Dr. Hightower. I think we need to talk about some letters you didn't authorize. I met Dr. Hightower the next morning in a clinic that smelled like antiseptic and relief. He was a square-built man with kind eyes and a bald spot he was losing patiently. He apologized for the forged letter on paper that bore his name. I didn't write it, he said, palms open. I'll sign an affidavit today. We have security logs and e-records that show when Mrs. Carter requested records. We denied her. She found another way. Thank you, I said. Gratitude had become the rhythm of my days, a counterbeat to anger. 1 week became 3. Klein and Marlowe went from granite to sand. Ramirez called with updates, said slowly, carefully, as if each detail might detonate if tossed carelessly into the air. The DA's office moved. Sloane took a plea, probation, restitution, testimony. The junior associate flipped before anyone asked him to. Klein got quiet. Dawn resigned. Daniel moved into a one-bedroom near Colfax with a leaky sink and a window that looked out on a parking lot where kids skated on worn boards. He sold the SUV that announced a life he couldn't afford. He started carrying cash because holding your limits feels different in your palm than on a screen. We met twice a week for coffee at a diner with a cracked vinyl booth. He told me everything. He cried the way men do when the dam gives, ugly, holy. Every time Sloane said you forgot something, he admitted, it made it easier to believe I should help. It felt good. Useful. Like I was protecting you. Even when I was erasing you. I stirred my coffee until the spoon clinked ceramic. You are my son, I said. I know your kindness. I also know your fear. We will build on the first and teach the second to sit. He smiled like someone undoing a knot they tied themselves. Caleb moved into the studio out back. He mowed. He fixed hinges. He scared off a raccoon with a stubborn streak. Every night he left a receipt on the kitchen table showing exactly what he'd been paid and for what, as if to argue with his past. We ate chili on a Tuesday and didn't talk about legal pads. The house changed the way healed skin does, tender for a while, then quietly itself again. I set Thomas's mug back in the cabinet. I slept without bargaining. One evening, as the maples sent down their last red flags, Daniel asked, Mom, what happens to us now? I looked at the sky-stained gold at the edges and said the only honest thing, we keep showing up. With truth. With boundaries. With consequences. With grace that doesn't make excuses. He nodded, a man learning the geography of repair. A week later, a letter arrived addressed in Thomas's careful hand, the last thing he'd mailed before he died, delayed in a mailroom tangle. Inside was one line in his familiar script, if anyone ever doubts you, Nora, let them meet your spine. I sat on the back steps with the letter in my lap while the afternoon thinned. The garden Caleb tended glowed with the stubborn greens that survive first frost. Somewhere down the block, a child's laugh rose and fell like a bird. I held Thomas's words and felt what I hadn't allowed myself since the day in the garage, peace that didn't ask permission. A lot got taken that day: ease, trust, the easy shape of family. But a lot survived too, and some of it was new, like the way truth settles in a room and makes it possible to breathe again. If you're listening to this and thinking of your own kitchen table, your own stack of papers, hear me, there are things you can do that don't require permission from the people who doubt you. Own your paper. Keep originals in a fireproof box. Share scanned copies in a read-only vault. Don't let anyone be the only keeper of your story. Build speed bumps. Set bank alerts. Require voice confirmation for large transfers. Choose a trusted contact who doesn't benefit from your mistakes. Notice the drip. Gaslighting rarely shouts, it whispers. If you start narrating your life to justify it, write it down instead. Patterns hate daylight. Ask for help, and define it. Help that removes your agency isn't help. It's a rehearsal for control. Practice boundaries out loud. No, not today. Walk me through every word. Say it even if your voice shakes. Especially then. I won't pretend forgiveness is tidy. Some mornings I pick it up like a heavy bag, some nights I put it back down. Sloane does her hours at the food bank where Caleb picks up supplies for the church pantry. Sometimes they look at each other and nod, two people who know what desperation can make you and what decency can make you again. Daniel is paying his debts the long way, the only way that lasts. There's pride in his eyes I recognize. It looks like Thomas when we had more month than paycheck and still found a way. If you're in a fight for your name, remember this: you are allowed to be the main character of your own life at any age. You are not difficult because you ask for clarity. You are not cruel because you enforce a boundary. You are not weak because you cry while you do both. The sun slid down, setting the maple on fire from the inside, and the wind chimes sang low, like someone humming a song they loved. I folded Thomas's letter. I set it by the coffee maker so I'd see it tomorrow. I went inside and locked the door, not from fear, but from habit, the way people do who intend to get some sleep. Now it's your turn. Has anyone ever tried to write over your story? If you were me, if you were sitting at a table with people you love and a stack of papers that said otherwise, what would you do first? Tell me your city, tell me your safeguard, tell me the person who'd stand up for you in a conference room and say, "We have the originals." And if you don't have that person yet, borrow my words until you do, walk me through every word, on record.